And good evening. No news tonight. We're going straight into the big high school sports show here on Bow Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bowfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes along with Jason Foster, and this is it. This is your last night. I think this is the 12th straight Wednesday night you've been with me, and it's been fantastic. And as we get close to the end of the high school football season, most of our teams have seen their season come to an end. But I guess to start it off, it's been really fun to have you here this year. I know that I had to talk to you a few times. I started last spring saying, hey, would you be interested in doing this? I know that it's like, oh, you're saying, well, how would this go? How would this go? I hope you've enjoyed it because I've really enjoyed having you. And everybody that I've talked to have said, well, you've really settled in really nicely and have done a great job. So, number one, we're going to enjoy the next 2 hours, but again, it's been a lot of fun having you here the last, what has it been, 12 weeks, so that's equivalent of about 3 months.
No, it's been great. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been honestly, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and I think one of the two things I enjoy the most are, one, you coach football for a long time, and everyone just assumes you know a lot about everything that's going on in the area from a football standpoint. But the reality of the situation is when you're a head football coach, you know an awful lot about your football program and who you're playing that week. And otherwise, other things that are going on, even in the college and the NFL world, you really don't really care that much all about it. So First off, it's been great to get to know some of the coaches and athletes, but just to really start to get a better understanding of the conferences around here and how they work and what programs are at the kind of know which programs are at the top, but who's on the rise and who's taking steps in the right direction. And then probably my favorite part of the show is always having the student athletes on, their perspective and allowing them to share with the average person out there who's listening just what exactly goes into being a high school athlete and how much time and effort they put into it. We'll talk a little bit later about signing day and things like that. And for people, it's neat to see these kids kind of get to that culminating event and kind of reach the goals that they've been striving for, but also what goes into being a student these days and being an athlete these days. And most of these could probably have jobs as well. So just there's a ton of stuff going on, and it's been great. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, again, it's great to have your perspective, because what I want from the person opposite me is a different perspective, because I have a perspective calling games and hanging around at practices and not actually putting together practices and actually leading teams onto the field and not knowing all the intricacies that maybe a different perspective has. And that's, again, with Coach Novinsky for all those years and now with you this year, it's wonderful to have where, again, it's easy, whether you're sitting in the crowd or whether you're sitting in the press box, to be able to second guess. And it's obviously a lot goes into what the coaches do, and as you said, the student athletes as well. So again, it's been fantastic. Let's talk about what we have here in the next 2 hours. You said it. Today was signing day, and there was an event. You were involved over at Wausau West. I went over there, had a chance to talk to a couple of Wausau West athletes. Kelly Cray, who's outstanding basketball player. She was part of the volleyball team as well, and she is heading off to college, and we will talk to her. And then Allie Shawls from the volleyball aspect. So we'll hear some of the comments coming up in the second segment of the program at 6:20. Then we're going to talk to Civic Media's Jimmie Kaska, a veteran announcer. Also, to this year, he's been an assistant coach and really keeps an eye on what's going on around the state of Wisconsin, and kind of have a sort of an umbrella recap of what we see right now in terms of high school football in the state of Wisconsin, where we stand in a number of different areas. So we'll have Jimmie on at 6:40. And then our student athlete guest coming into studio tonight from Wausau East, multi-sport athlete Caden Werth. He received all-conference note in the Valley Football Association. He'll be part of the Wausau East boys basketball team coming up as well. So we will talk to Caden Werth just after 7 o'clock. So again, a full slate of guests and a full slate for the next 2 hours here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bow Falls Radio. But before we wrap up the fall season and start turning our attention towards basketball and hockey starting next week with a little dash of football, because the odds are that we're going to see at least maybe one and maybe a couple of these teams make it to the state finals next week. But last week the playoffs continued. A limited amount of teams from Central Wisconsin involved in the postseason, and we'll start with Division 7 as the Edgar Wildcats, and not normally known for putting up massive point totals. They've been known for the defense so far this season, and a rather high-scoring game, but in the end, Edgar went to undefeated Boyceville and won 52-26. So Boyceville had gone into that game undefeated, 11-0, and Edgar, they've now won 11 games in a row after losing their season opener. And Carter Butt, I mean, we've talked during the course of the season how Jerry Sins is able to basically try to keep his guys fresh for the end of the season. Make sure they're ready to go, healthy, and then ride them as hard as you can when you get to these tough games, and that's exactly what happened. Carter Butt had 37 rushes for 317 yards, 6 touchdowns on the ground, as if that wasn't enough. He was 1 of 1 passing for 18 yards and a touchdown, so 7 touchdowns involved in for Carter Butt, added 6 tackles on defense. Colby Weisenberger had 8 rushes for 69 yards, added 6 tackles on defense. For Boyceville, Carson Romehild was 7 of 14 passing, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Caden Wold, 2 catches, 132 yards and 2 scores. Nick Olson, 16 rushes for 131 yards and a touchdown. Nobody's put up that kind of offense against Edgar so far this season, but man, oh man, 52 points. And what can you say about what Carter Butt has been able to accomplish this season? And the save, I bet you it would be hard pressed to find a performance any better during what's been an outstanding high school football career than what he did on the road at Boyceville last week.
Yeah, I think we call that or talk about that in other sports, load management, right? Like, I think Carter's had a nice load management throughout the year, but I think some flies under the radar a little bit. That probably plays some good defense earlier in those other games too. But 37 rushes for 317 yards. I don't care what division you're in. I don't care what week of the season it is, what level of football it is. That's an unbelievable football game. I don't think people quite understand what it means to carry the football 37 times in a game. 6 touchdowns. I saw some social media stuff out there that I think he broke or tied like 4 Edgar school records in that game with the number of touchdowns, number of yards in a playoff game, or total yards carried. And when you look at a program like Edgar and all they've accomplished, to think that one athlete could break or tie 4 school records in one night, I think speaks pretty highly of what he did in that game and who he is as a player overall. And
you said it. I mean, 37 rushes on its own is amazing, and then to play the defense as well. I mean, that's what these Edgar kids have done for so many years, and to be able to do it on both sides. And, I mean, when you look at some of the numbers that Boyceville put up last week, I mean, obviously, it was not an accident they were 11-0. It was not an accident they were a number 1 seed, and they had the home field. And again, obviously, it goes into the whole discussion about seeding and where you get the numbers from. But again, this was a team that showed. I mean, Edgar jumped out to a big lead. Boyceville kind of clawed their way back a little bit. It was a great test, and at this time of the year, it's about passing those tests, and that's what Edgar did again against a very good football team.
Yeah, a team that threw the ball really well, a team that rushed for over 132 yards, and I don't know if at any point Edgar called the dogs off, but at that score, I wouldn't say that Jerry did any time too soon in that game. And that's almost a double offensive output for Edgar, but at the same time, that's more points than they've had given up cumulative for the entire season to this point. So obviously good Boyceville. And while I'm not an expert on D7 football in the state of Wisconsin, it's not uncommon at a lot of levels for games like this to maybe be a state championship type game. I mean, is it possible that both Edgar and Boyceville were the 2 best teams in D7 this year? And it's not, like I say, sometimes those level 4 games, the semifinal game's a much better matchup than what the state championship game ends up being. And we'll see if that's the case or not. But obviously a good 11-0 Boyceville team got beat at home. I think it speaks really well to who and what Edgar is, and probably hopefully what they're on a path for this week.
And 11-0 7 wins in a row for Edgar. Again, when you get double digits in high school football victories, that's always a very, very good thing. Speaking of teams on a big roll, Stratford has now won 10 games in a row. Division 6, we talked to Coach Tubbs last week. The number 2 seeded Stratford Tigers went to number 1 seeded Auburndale. Both teams came in 10 wins and 1 loss. And Stratford, as we heard from Coach Tubbs, they weren't exactly thrilled to go to Auburndale, but they made sure they were not pleasant visitors because they rolled past the Eagles 40-7. Kohler Kilty, again, during the course of the season, there were times where he wasn't getting as many rushes, I think, as he's capable of. But again, that load management, making sure that he was ready to roll, because another two-way player for the Stratford Tigers, as we heard from the coach last week. But Kohler Kilty, 29 rushes, 194 yards on the evening. And again, the pass game has added a nice element the last couple of years for Stratford. Jack Tubbs didn't throw it a lot, but boy, when he did throw it, he was exceptionally effective. 9 of 11 passing, 186 yards, 4 touchdowns, and Gavin Leonard, boy, again, the coach had nothing but praise for this young man last week as well. He had 4 catches for 133 yards and 3 touchdowns. In big games, you need your big performers to step up, and that's exactly what happened for Stratford.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it last week, or Coach kind of touched on it. We commented on it afterwards that I think he was heading to Auburndale with a chip on his shoulder, and looking at the outcome, I would say that the game went according to script, or at least how we thought it might go. The crazy, I look at this stat line, and it kind of gives me crazy flashbacks to when Kimberly was in the middle of their 76-game winning streak and 6 straight championship streak. And this is what they did. They rushed the ball well for 200-plus yards a game, one guy or multiple guys, and they threw the ball 10 to 15, usually 12 times a game with an incredible efficiency, a 9 for 11, 185 yards, and it was usually 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then one receiver having those 3-4 catches for 100-plus yards. I mean, this is definitely two things. One, it's a recipe for success. If you can throw the ball that few times and have that amount of success with it, it's obviously tied directly to your game plan and your running game. Like if you can run the ball that effective, they put more guys in the box, and then it gives you the opportunities, whether it's play action or whatever. It'd be interesting to see. I know that Coach Martins from Mosinee now has his fingers in that offense a little bit and helping out. Obviously, Coach Tubbs is the leader of that crew, but I know that might add an extra element to that. But at all levels, but in particular at D6 level, D7, we've talked about this all the time. We talk about it in the Great Northern, the Medfords of the world, that sort of thing. If you probably see a ratio 7-3 passing out of 10 attempts, if that, maybe 8-2 week in and week out, week in and week out. So when you are preparing for teams, you can load the box, you can shut things down. But if you have to be able at this level to stop the run and the pass with the guys you have on your roster and guys who play both ways, that is a tall task. And the fact that they have that recipe, I think, also speaks well to their potential success and opportunity to defend their state championship.
One thing we saw in both the Edgar victory and the Stratford victory were teams that won on the road. How big of a deal is it? I mean, because, you look at it, we've talked about during the course of the last few weeks about maybe a few teams being underseeded, but in the end, these teams are able to find a way and, in fact, win by rather significant margins. Is the whole idea of the home field advantage maybe talked about too much? Or is it just, in this case, these are just two teams that are very good, number one, and also with veteran coaches who probably know their way around any kind of road trip as well?
I think there's definitely an advantage to home field advantage. Like I said, I know Auburndale has a rich tradition, so I would have to imagine that they packed that stadium last night with their tradition and their hometown and their alumni and everybody who is still telling stories about when they were in high school and won their state championship. So you would really think it is. So I almost wonder in this season and in this year if Stratford and Edgar really are just that much better. And I'll go back to what Coach Tubbs touched on last week, and we talked about it a little bit. I would love to see these level 3 games be neutral site games. I'd love to see them all on turf somewhere. I know I apologize to the grass purists out there, but when you talk this time of year, whether it's rain or snow or mud or field conditions, I think those things probably play more into a home field advantage than, say, the crowd or the bus ride or whatever. So I think two things.
Mud is the great equalizer, right?
Mud is the great, especially on the run team or the pass teams, right? And then I think that this kind of levels that playing field and kind of eliminates that variable of the argument about computer seeding and who got the higher seed. And because Coach is right, if you're the 1 versus the 2 or the 1 versus the 3 in this matchup and you felt like you should be the one, if you're playing at a neutral site, does it really matter?
Right, exactly. Division 5, Wittenberg-Burnhamwood saw their season come to an end. Chargers fell to Wrightstown by a score of 41-17, a game that was played at Steam Stadium over at DC Everest. Whitburn jumped out to a 9-0 lead, but then really had no answer for the Wrightstown rush game, and Wittenberg could not really get the offense going. In fact, the Chargers' offense kind of sputtered a little bit both last week against Amherst and now this week against Wrightstown. Wrightstown ran it 54 times for 321 yards, nearly 6 yards per carry as a team. Aiden Humphreys had 14 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Marshall Fraser did a good job for the Chargers, 17 carries, 92 yards, but basically he carried much of the load for the success for Wittenberg-Burnhamwood as the Chargers did get 207 yards rushing as a team, 43 attempts, but held in pretty good check by Wrightstown. Nathan Wopenekane was 5 of 16 passing for just 37 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But Wrightstown, again, not having been at Steam last week, the battle at the line of scrimmage. So often it comes down to, who can move the ball on the ground, who can stop the other team from doing what they want at the level that they want to, and apparently Wrightstown was able to do that against Whitburn.
Yeah, Wrightstown obviously has a really nice tradition of winning as well. I think we'll talk more about that, but I think that's a theme you see when you get to level 3 and 4, and who wins those matchups is who's been there more, whose coach is more prepared to play in those conditions with less light and all those. As you practice, it has more to do with the practice of the week leading up to it than the game itself. But I think what sticks out to me in this game from being around football a long time is it's demoralizing if a team rushes the ball 54 times for that many yards and that many yards per carry. Once the ball starts rolling downhill and you can't stop it, it's in for a long night. And in D5, as in a lot of other divisions, there's probably a lot of kids going both ways. And when you're on the field for that many, those usually then are the drives that last 8, 10, 12 plays. So you're on the field for that defense and you're catching for 10 straight plays with probably a nice fullback punching you in the face and a pulling guard hitting you. And then they score and you want to go get a good water and a rest before you start taking that punishment again, and you're out on kick return. and then you're back on offense. And what are you going to do on offense if you just took 12 plays of taking that on defense?
In fact, sometimes when you see 5.9 yards per carry, that is actually more effective than if you were getting 9 yards per carry. In a sense, you're just beating them.
It's
basically
death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like that is, I remember and they didn't really have that run of state championships like Kimberly, but I always remember playing Appleton North being a tougher game or a tougher matchup for us at Wausau West than Kimberly was for that exact reason. They would go double tight or unbalanced and bring that extra tackle in, and they were more than happy to gain 4 or 5 yards. And it's hard for high school kids, like, to get them to understand that's what we want. Because if you have to run that play 12 times, there's a better chance of a penalty getting behind the sticks for them. There's a better chance of a turnover. So the more plays they have to do. But if you're the kid catching that fullback when they lead on trap or draw or power or whatever the case may be, time after time, and we as coaches, we get excited that they only get 4 or 5 yards of a team of that caliber on it. But if you're the 16 or 17-year-old catching the brunt of that play, it's pretty demoralizing.
Yep, absolutely. And then 8-player had their semifinals last week. In fact, I went and saw in person one of these games. So, but not Thorpe and McDonald. But Thorpe and McDonald played for the second time, and for the second time, it was a very competitive game. But Thorpe, they had lost 2 games in the regular season, to Gilman and to McDonald. And they beat Gilman last week, and they beat McDonald this week at DeRay Field in Chippewa Falls, 16-13. McDonald's first loss of the season. Thorpe now 9-2. It was an even game, as the yardage indicated. Thorpe 264 yards, McDonald 264 yards. And again, both teams had some really good offensive performers. The defense has really stepped up. Quarterback Denzel Sutton for Thorpe was 9 of 15, 97 yards, added 18 rushes, 51 yards. Logan Hansen, a really big athletic back, 64 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries for Thorpe. Grant Smiskey, 6 of 7, 104 yards, touchdown and a pick for McDonald. Added 10 rushes for 46 yards, and neither team able to get the run game going all that much. Thorpe, 3.2 yards per carry. McDonald, 3.9 yards per carry. In the end, Thorpe scored 2 touchdowns. They made their 2-point conversions. They led 16-0. McDonald scored, missed their 2-point conversion, scored again, kicked the extra point, but then again, 2 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns. So many of these games we have seen, it's who has that 2-point conversion. And I know coaches, they're ready for that. They have their special 2-point conversion plays, and we've seen a number of games that during this playoff run where that's been the difference.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if the word is ruined or spoiled, but I think Coach Micklig and Newman Catholic may have spoiled or ruined 8-man football for me, because prior to this year, that's who I followed, right?
His offense, huh?
Yeah, and I'm used to these incredibly lopsided whether they were either lopsided or extremely high scoring, like these high powered whatever that run and whatever, that lot of plays, a lot of big plays, a lot of touchdowns, a lot of points. So when I see a game like that, 13-16, and as I've followed it through this year with you, there are more scores like that, or seem to be more scores that are lower scoring, more competitive. I mean, like you said, 264 to 264. I don't know how you get any more balanced than that. So yeah, I mean, kind of an exciting matchup when you look at the future as well. That I think people have this vision of what 8-man is.
Right.
This was a football game. They're all football games,
yes.
But this is the type of level 4 or semifinal playoff.
You got to be
game.
tough. It's
like
not.
This is a strap it on and let's go. Strap them up.
And the other 8-player semifinal was played in Wapaka. I went along with Coach Micklig and Coach Thorpe and Coach Ackerman. They can't get away from these semifinal games. Need to go and watch them at the very least. And Florence beat Oakfield 40-12. Florence is still undefeated. Oakfield lost for the first time this year. Will Kelly was fantastic. I mean, I tell you, watching him play both offense and defense last week, he was the guy for the Florence Bobcats. He had 27 rushes for 211 yards and 3 touchdowns. Added 9 tackles on defense. He was fantastic. And then you get 211 from one, and then you have Logan Scholes get 179 yards on 17 carries and 2 scores. So 400 yards rushing between those two. Those were the only 2 for Florence. And Oakfield was not able to run. They had 17 rushes, 43 yards as a team. Early on, especially, it looked like they were going to be able to throw the ball very effectively, but then Florence was able to tighten things up. Brady Shep, 21-34 passing, 260 yards, touchdown and a pick. Braden Gigla had 8 catches, 124 yards, but I was very impressed. I saw Florence back in week 1, and they were very impressive at Newman. They were very impressive in this game. But there's one thing I want to, as a coach, it was a 16-12 game, and early in the third quarter, actually, and Oakfield had the ball in their own territory on a 4th and 4, if I'm not mistaken. Instead of playing the field position, they went for it, led to a short field. 2 plays later, Florence scored, and I felt that was a big turning point. And I was saying to Coach Micklig and the others that it just feels like in the coaches' minds these days, you always have to go for it. This analytics garbage, I would call it. Yeah. But as a coach, you're in a 4-point game in the third quarter, giving up the ball to a very good team on the bad side of the field. It just made no sense to me.
I would call that maddening. And it almost makes watching NFL football unwatchable at times for me as well, when I see how regularly, was it the Packers-Bears game to start the year, in the very first possession of the year, the Bears went for it on 4th down in their own 30, 35-yard line, whatever it was. It just, the Sean McVay and the Rams do it all the time. It is crazy to me. And when you consider a game that's close, how did you get to that point? How many times did you go for it on 4th and 4 in your own territory to make it a close game and to get into that situation? How hard have you worked all season, all off season to get to this point? What was the thought process that went into your game planning and everything that led up to your success? I doubt that was it. I doubt that was the type of decision. And talk about analytics. I don't know much about them. I don't know much about anything that has to do with that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I would highly doubt analytics said go for it in that situation.
I just found it odd again, but we see it so often now. And you're right, at the pro level, at the college level, at the high school level, where instead of doing what would seem to be the prudent thing, it's almost as, you got to go for it. No, you don't have to go for it. Make them go the long distance.
And to listen to announcers announce the games on Saturdays and Sundays, it used to be out comes the punt unit or whatever, and now they like have to stop and pause.
Exactly.
And the camera zooms in on the coach on the sideline to see what, and they just. I think at the end of the day, the coaches are inserting themselves into that process.
So that was what happened last week. We'll talk later on about the state semifinals in Division 7 and 6 involving Edgar and Stratford, and the 8-player state championship game between Thorpe and Florence later on. But coming up next, today was a special day in high school athletics because it was a signing day where student athletes made their official signings where they're going to play college athletics and go to school academically. And we'll hear from a couple of girls at Wausau West that I had a chance to talk to earlier today. And that's coming up next. Along with Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on Bow Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
If you're looking for your next ride, check out Mankey GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Mankey GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Mankey GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at MankeyAuto.com. Mankey GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
What's your idea of fall fun? Maybe it's hitting the trails on a new ATV. Then it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Or if you're thinking of a UTV for hauling wood or hunting, or maybe just because it would make the tasks around your property so much easier, it's time to call CCU. ATVs, UTVs, utility tractors, and their attachments for care of your property. Whether you need it for fun or to get the job done, Clover Belt Credit Union is here to help with the great rate financing you want. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Thinking about a motorhome or maybe a snowplow for your ATV or utility tractor? Call CCU for great rate financing. And if you're thinking motorcycle, Clover Belt Credit Union has the financing you need for the bike you want. Call or apply online at ccuwausau.com. Check it out. For vehicle loans, for mortgages, for financing fall fun, call Clover Belt Credit Union. That's CCU. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
Fall sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rim Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rim Mountain today.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
Yum.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bow Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bowfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Coming up in a little bit here in this hour, We'll be talking about high school football generally here as we come towards the end of the 2023 season with Civic Media's Jimmie Kaska. And then after that, just after 7 o'clock, we will have our student-athlete guest this week from Wausau East High School, Caden Werth. Along with Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, but both Jason and myself were at Wausau West. Of course, he was officially the master of ceremonies as it was National Signing Day all around the country, in fact. This was a big day at high schools all over the place. And I happened to be at West as a pair of Warriors signing their letters of intent. Kelly Cray and Allie Shawls. Kelly Cray will be playing basketball at Grand Valley State University. Allie Shawls volleyball at UW La Crosse. But Jason, before we actually hear some comments that I had with both Kelly and Allie, the thing about these days, everybody's so happy. You know, it really is one of those where it's like there's not a person with a frown around, and it's so cool to see the students come at lunch to support their friends and classmates, see the parents who have seen these youngsters from the very beginning get to this point. It's such a joyous occasion, and it's happening at schools all around central Wisconsin, but all around the country today, and that's really something to savor.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about it is obviously the students who come up and show up and show out and support. It's a lot. I mean, probably some kids who should be in class were standing there at that time as well. But it's really neat. It's great for those kids. It is kind of the culmination of a lot of hard work and energy. What I love about the basketball signing is Kelly she's got a whole another senior year basketball to play. Allie, volleyball's done, and that'll happen when the football players come up in December on the 20th as well. But yeah, it's a great day. It's a great day for family. It's a great day for friends. The other thing that's really neat is to watch the parents who've watched these guys play. So it's not just the parents of the signees, it's their friends' parents and their teammates' parents who come out, who've watched them play Little League and travel ball and worked camps together and all that. So it's a neat thing. And the other really nice thing about the process is how inclusive it's become as well. It used to be a thing where these situations, ceremonies, whatever you want to call them, were very much a Division I thing and a D1. I think that's something that has changed through social media, but probably even more so through recruiting. I think that's one of the ways that you attract these players. And I think it also gives great exposure to how quality the college athletics we have here in the state of Wisconsin and in the Midwest in general. Like, there's a lot of outstanding D2 programs in the Midwest. There's also a lot of really good D3 programs right here in our state as well.
And I had a chance to talk to both Kelly and Allie after the presentation of the signing today. As I said, Kelly Cray will play basketball at Grand Valley State University. And here is my conversation that I had with Kelly Cray this afternoon.
Along with Wausau West Warrior senior Kelly Cray, who signed her national letter of intent to Grand Valley State today. Number one, why Grand Valley State? Obviously, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into a college choice, athletically, academically, just the feel. What went into your decision? And I know this has been something you decided last year, but what went into it in terms of saying this is the place I want to be?
Yeah, well, you talked about the feel of just like the campus, the coaches, the girls, and there's like nothing negative that I could say about Grand Valley. I mean, I went there not knowing what it was and not really understanding it was almost an 8-hour drive away from Wausau, but I left knowing that it's somewhere where I could totally see myself playing and just being, and honestly, I left as it being my dream school.
When you talk about the basketball, the connection with the coach is big. Connection with the way the program is run is big. What for people that aren't familiar with Grand Valley State, maybe what sold you on the basketball side of it?
Something that was really important to me when I was going throughout my recruitment process was going to a winning program. In the preseason poll, Grand Valley is currently ranked 3rd nationally, so that's really exciting. And I know the day after I committed, I'm not sure, I think they were definitely in the top 5 last year, but the day after I committed, my coach sent me the poll, and they were in the top 5 in the nation, which is just such a good feeling, and it's just really reassuring to know that I'm going to go there, and I'm going to have success with my teammates, and yeah.
What kind of opportunities? Because when sometimes kids will decide to go to a program and it's not a top 5 program because you have a quicker pathway maybe to be on the court. What is your pathway? Do you feel like, obviously you have a lot of work to do this year here at West, but at the same time, do you feel like you're going to have an opportunity early, or is it going to be a process?
I think it'll be a process. I think that, like you said, sometimes kids won't go to top schools just to try to get on the court right away, which is totally respectable. But at the end of the day, my goal is to win a national championship. And I think that that's just going to take time. And it's going to take me having to fill my role wherever I have to be at Grand Valley. And also my role this year for my high school team is going to be unlike anything I've ever had to do before. I think that, I mean, we lost a lot last year. We lost some seniors, but we also gained this new team camaraderie that, like, the energy in the gym has just been different this year. And I think that we're really ready to surprise some people, and I'm really ready to fill a role that I have to fill this year.
Along that line, I was here yesterday and I was talking to one of the assistants and I was talking to a few folks around here today, and it sounds like you're continuing to expand your game. That actually, obviously you've done so much work very well inside, but the shot is coming along, maybe even from behind the arc. And I guess to piggyback on what you're going to try to do this year, I imagine that there's obviously things that your college coach is saying, hey, you got to expand your game to go to that next level as well.
Yeah, I think that, just like I said, like, being really, really a leader, not only just kind of on the court, but really, like, scoring-wise this year, is going to propel me to do the things that Coach Williams at Grand Valley really wants to see me do. And I think that there really just couldn't be a better scenario for me this year in high school to prepare me for next year at Grand Valley.
What are the things that maybe in your mind that are going to be the biggest differences? And again, you have an opportunity here for another year at Wausau West and have great opportunities here. But maybe what are the things that you know already that you're going to have to either train for or do differently to be successful at the college level?
Yeah, you said shooting from beyond the arc. I think that is probably predominantly the biggest thing that I've been working on and the biggest thing that you're hopefully going to see from me this year. And then also my ball handling. I think that we do have a couple solid guards, but also it's going to be on me to just be able to help them out and kind of be like a reliable source. I think last year I would run down the court and kind of just be there for backup and safety, but this year obviously, like I said, we've lost people that can handle the ball super well. And not that we don't have people that can't do that, it's just that, like, it needs to be more of a team effort this year. So I think ball handling and shooting threes is going to be the biggest thing.
And I guess finally, let's go back to this gym and this school and your senior year. What are you hoping to accomplish the rest of the year, whether it's basketball, whether it's your environment here with your friends and your family? As you look to the rest of the 2023-2024 basketball year and school year, what are the things you most want to accomplish before you do head off to Grand Valley State?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and a lot of people have been asking me how close I am to the mark, is scoring 1,000 points. I know exactly what I have to average every game this year to get there. And I think that with my new role, I think that that's definitely something that is within reach for me. Another thing, and it kind of goes along with what I said about how our energy being different this year, is just like building an environment that people want to be in. I do think that we're going to have success and that we're going to surprise people. My goal is for us to be in the top 3 in conference this year. I think that we can definitely compete at that level. But really just at the end of the day, I want girls to want to be here and I want them to have fun. And I think that even after just having 4 hours what we've had of practice, it's a different feel this year and I'm really excited.
And that was Kelly Cray again today at Wausau West as she is heading to play basketball at Grand Valley State University. Before we get to Allie, I mean, you've been around Kelly Cray for a long time. I mean, she's and she's such a personable young lady as well.
And obviously 6'1" or 2", whatever. She's got so much talent and ability, and probably the best thing she has is potential. Like, I think she's going to have a great year this year, and her best basketball is definitely ahead of her at that next level. But I think Coach Galligan hit it on the head today when she was talking about her. She's a multi-sport athlete. She's an incredible student, but then she's also super involved in all the different clubs and activities at Wausau West. Student, all the ones who kind of create and maintain our culture, and great young lady, great honor for her, and really excited to watch her this year and in the future.
And Allie Shawls, so we're going to hear from her in just a moment. And in fact, let's do it. Allie Shawls will be heading on to play volleyball at UW La Crosse after being a varsity player for 4 years at Wausau West in terms of volleyball. Had a chance to talk to Allie as well this afternoon.
And we're talking to Allie Shawls from Wausau West High School as she signed her letter of intent to go to play at UW La Crosse starting next year. I guess, first of all, being here today and feeling the positive vibes and having all your friends and your family just say, hey, we're proud of you. I mean, it's a special day, isn't it?
Yes, it's super special. I'm super happy for all my family and friends to come down for this big day for me. And yeah, I'm super excited.
Volleyball. Obviously, you had a really good career. Just wrapped it up here at Wausau West. As you look forward, how quickly do you think you'll be able to crack the lineup? Is the thought hey, right away I'm going to have an opportunity at UWL next year?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'm hoping to obviously get some play time freshman year, but it just kind of depends on all the other recruits and how everyone's performing. But yeah.
When you look at your high school career, what were the highlights? What are the things that you're taking away? Because obviously it's probably still raw because you wanted to probably go even further.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you look back, what were the biggest highlights for you here at West?
Well, freshman year was one of my biggest highlights as I made varsity as a freshman, which that doesn't really happen a lot here at West. And then freshman year, I got honorable mention. Sophomore and junior year, I got second team, and then senior year, I got first team. And then this year, too, I committed to lacrosse, and then I also broke my 1,000 kills points. So, yeah, it was super exciting. I didn't know if I was going to get my 1,000 kills, but I ended up scoring 19 kills in a tournament, in a two-game tournament, and getting my 1,000 kills. So, yeah.
When you decided to go to lacrosse, obviously you have opportunities. You probably talked to quite a few people, get advice. What was the difference for lacrosse, both in terms of the volleyball and maybe in terms of the school itself?
Yeah.
What drew you to lacrosse?
So when I went to lacrosse, I kind of I stepped foot on campus and I was like, wow, this is honestly where I want to be for my next 4 years. I love the coach there. She really helped me figure out she answered all my questions super honestly and open. When I was there, the team, I felt like I was already on the team by how I felt just being in the camp, and that was just a camp with a bunch of people, but I loved all the girls. And then I plan to do sports and exercise science, and that's what lacrosse is known for, so the education is perfect and super high there for me. So yeah.
It is a jump from high school to college in terms of talking to maybe your college coaches or other student athletes that have come through here at West that may have made that jump. What are the areas that you think, hey, this is what I'm going to have to focus on between now and the start of your college career to make sure that you're able to take that leap and be an effective player for lacrosse?
Yeah, honestly, this summer I'm going to really focus, and my club season's starting soon. I play for Wisconsin Ice. I'll be on their 18s team this season, and I'm going to work really hard. Even though I'm committed to a college, that doesn't mean I'm done. I got to keep working, lifting, practicing, and just show up when freshmen show up to lacrosse and just play my best that I can.
Again, that was Allie Schulz, who is from Wausau West, also heading on to take on WIAC foes at UW Lacrosse. So, again, and I know that there was a busy day over at DC Everest and other schools here in central Wisconsin. So, congratulations to everybody that had the opportunity to celebrate here today. And, again, it was a lot of fun being over at West and seeing all those smiling faces.
Yeah, I kind of put a final note. I know we touched on it earlier, too, what a neat opportunity it is. You look at Allie going to UW Lacrosse to play volleyball. What a good fit that is for her. And then I look back a few years, and we have a really good Grace Michalski, who's a star player for UW Stevens Point volleyball, and Robin Kirsch, who's a star player for a top nationally ranked UW Oshkosh volleyball program. And I just think players and families and whatever, everyone has these aspirations to go D1 or D2 or whatever it is, and at the end of the day it's really about finding the best fit for you, first off academically, second off athletically, and then going and making the most of your opportunities. So I love when these kids make these decisions and the thought that goes into it, and then following them as they move forward through the process.
Absolutely. Well, coming up next, we're going to be talking high school football from a big picture point of view here in Wisconsin with Civic Media's Jimmie Kaska. That's next on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230.
State champions are crowned over the weekend in boys soccer plus boys and girls volleyball. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
High school football playoffs are here, and the NFHS Network is the place to keep up with every moment of the action. You can catch all the games live or on demand wherever you are. At home or on the go, you can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Watching high school sports has never been easier. Subscribe to the NFHS Network now to watch every play this postseason. Visit NFHSNetwork.com. That's NFHSNetwork.com.
Uline Soccer Park in Milwaukee was the site of the boys soccer state championship on Saturday. To open the festivities, Shoreland Lutheran took down St. Mary Catholic to claim the Division IV title. Fourth-seeded Belleville New Glarus, who goes by the Sugar River Co-op, surprised with the title in Division III, taking down Plymouth 4-1 in the final. Union Grove grabbed the title in Division II. Middleton survived a shootout against Marquette in the semifinals, then won via shootout once again in the championship match against Brookfield East. Within just a few minutes of the Middleton boys soccer team winning the title, the Cardinals boys volleyball squad also claimed a state championship at the Rush Center in Green Bay, taking down Arrowhead in 5 sets. It's the first title for Middleton in 14 state tournament appearances. In the girls volleyball state tournament, top-seeded Waniwak Center rallied from a 2-set deficit to take down Newman Catholic in a thrilling Division IV title match. After a runner-up finish last year, St. Croix Falls won the title in Division III against 3-time defending champion Howard's Grove. Xavier was a repeat state champion in Division II with a straight-set victory against McFarland. There was a repeat winner in D1 as well, where DSHA beat Oconomowoc in the championship match for a second straight year. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net and search Apple for the WSN podcast.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though.
What's going on?
He's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team, and ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Big high school sports show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With former Wausau West High School head football coach Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Again, our student athlete guest for this week coming up in just a little bit, Caden Werth from Wausau East. But right now, very happy to welcome to the program, talk about generally here in the state of Wisconsin high school football as we get near the state finals and the end of another season from Civic Media. Man, a veteran broadcaster, an assistant football coach now, and really a knowledgeable guy about Wisconsin football, Jimmie Kaska. And Jimmie, first of all, again, thanks for coming on the program.
Hey, glad to be back home in the Northwoods for sure.
I talked to you about this in the past. You've gone from behind the mic all the time in terms of your coverage. You still covers college football, I know, as well, but an assistant football coach. Number one, again, where are you coaching of high school football this past season?
So I'm in far southwestern Wisconsin. I'm down at a city called Boscobel. So maybe if you know where Platteville is, about a half hour north of that, right on the Wisconsin River. But yep, that's where I'm at, in Boscobel.
What have you learned that you didn't know before you became a coach? Because I said to Jason at the start of the show, one of the big reasons that I have him on, beyond his outstanding personality, of course, is the fact that he's able to give me a different perspective. Because me up in the press box, not a coach, not somebody that's there every day, watching every bit of the film, doing all the preparation. What have you learned from that side as opposed to when you're behind the mic exclusively?
I'll tell you this, the last 2 years being an assistant coach has really taught me a lot about how the game is instructed in the modern era. So for me, it's been a while since I played. It's been about 20 years. So I'm 20 years removed when we were still exchanging VHS, at coaches meetings and things like that, right? So we used to have the overhead projectors and stuff when I was in school. That doesn't exist anymore. It's all done through Huddle, and most of it's done through Huddle. And there's a lot of things in that help coaches track and move film, create highlights. They use highlight packages to help determine things like all region and all state. A lot of details put into the technology side of it. Everything from having digital play calling and things like that in practice, to having drones do your practice and game film. There's a lot of things technologically I didn't realize sort of existed, even in the high school world. I thought that was more of like an NFL or college thing, but even high schools, if they have the means, are using these things. And I think really the other part of it, beyond the details of just day-to-day and what coaches, administrators, staff, volunteers, everybody, the whole army it takes to put on high school sports in any capacity, just seeing all that goes into a game day makes you really appreciate the work that people are doing just all around. I really think just knowing all the people that kind of go into it, that helps me in my setting. When I come to a venue, I know, hey, these people are all here doing some work, and they're all much more essential than me because I'm just the broadcaster showing up. But I think really, if you're talking about strictly on-air benefits, recognizing formations, recognizing defenses, things like that. But I think the biggest area it's actually helped me in, and this might sound funny, but in knowing the rules and situations, like knowing the rule book and how it's applied and how things are made, decisions are made in game, I think that's really where it's helped me the most.
I've actually found that as a longtime head coach, knowing the rules, I didn't always like that because it made it harder for me to complain about calls. If I actually knew what the rules were, then it was more of a challenge. But that's a great perspective. I'd kind of follow up on that a little bit and take it kind of tying into what you had said about the being on the media side of it versus the coach's side of it. You made some really good points, but also how do you compare what you see at the college level, at the WIAC level, right? You're with UW-Platteville and doing their games. How do you compare the high school game to the D3 college game? Like, what are some of the similarities and the biggest differences you see with your involvement in those two levels?
I think really the biggest difference is just the obvious level of play. The speed of the game is much different at the college level. And Division III football in Wisconsin is a very high level of football, to the point that they're not only beating Division II teams, but competitive with some of the FCS teams. So it's a very high level of football. And you see just how plays develop. Things are more crisp. Quarterbacks can get the ball to the sidelines. Teams use several plays in a game to set up other plays later in the game. I think those things really are the obvious points of it. But I really think in terms of similarities, one of the things that I actually particularly enjoy about calling football in Wisconsin is the fact that there are so many athletes playing along the offense and defensive lines. The athletes, you see how they get out in space, how they make blocks on defense, how they're dropping back in coverage. We get to cover at Platteville. One of the best players in the entire nation who's getting NFL looks is Justin Blazik. He's already had a couple of interceptions. He's had a strip sack and a fumble return just in the last game. He's played on offense and in short yardage situations, thrown, caught, and rushed for a touchdown. You get to see these athletes playing on the lines. And I know that the high school level, some schools put their biggest kids up front, some schools put their best athletes up front. But when you see big guys who can move in space at the college level, it's a lot of fun to watch at the college ranks.
Again, we're talking to Jimmie Kaska from Civic Media, talking high school football here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. When I was, we were going back and forth in terms of things to talk about here tonight, and I had mentioned about, in terms of participation. I know that you keep a close eye on different issues around Wisconsin, and you pointed out to me that in terms of participation numbers that have been going down, there's actually, from what you've seen, actually some good news on that front, isn't there?
Yeah, things have leveled off a bit. I think the article that a lot of people are pointing to is an article that WPR put out a couple of weeks ago. And there's been a number of people that have actually gone on to address this. You mentioned Travis Wilson at the, during our time off the air of WisSports.net. He's actually gone on their programming to talk about it. But, the participation for football in Wisconsin, when you're at a small school, like the one I'm at, yes, the participation numbers can be a challenge year to year. In fact, this year, for an 11-player football team, we played with basically 19 players the whole year. So it was a challenge week in and week out. But if you look at just the overall total participation in football in the state, things have more or less leveled off the last few years. And, part of that is just the fact that a lot of the programs that have the good numbers are the big programs that have success year over year, programs in cities, suburbs, that kind of thing. But I think the other part of it is that, there's more of an emphasis lately on getting people out for other, multiple sports. There's not as much of the specialization happening. I mean, there's still happening, but you're seeing people more willing to go to football. People see it as a viable, a safe option. Parents aren't so against it. A lot of the medical studies that have been done show that Other sports actually have more risk of things like concussions. So, there's a lot of little things that kind of pile up to that. But the safe participation in Wisconsin football is down to a point that, is football, I think the article is titled like, something like, can football be saved in Wisconsin or something crazy like that, right? And it could be farther from the truth. There's still over 400 schools sponsoring football in the state of Wisconsin. Some are in co-ops, some are playing 8-player, and the vast majority are still playing 11-player. And while there is a trend for more co-ops and especially for more 8-player football in recent years, you still have a lot of schools sponsoring football, and there's still a pretty good level of interest in most communities to have that sport.
Yeah, and I think I would also throw out there to that conversation, I think there's some myths surrounding 8-man football as well, or why schools are going to, I think people just assume are a number of kids who are interested in football or willing to play, or parents who will let them play dip to a certain level, and then we jump on, or schools jump on the 8-man, whatever you want to call it, bandwagon or trend or whatever it is. And as an athletic director now, and talking to coaches in Region 2, so in the central Wisconsin and northeastern area Wisconsin, it's interesting to hear why schools go to 8-man football. Sometimes it's because of their geographic location and there aren't other 11-man teams to play. So they probably are right on that cusp of having enough players to play 11-man football, but it's easier from a transportation and budget standpoint to play the 8-man teams that are around them as opposed to having their closest 11-man opponent being 100+ miles away and even further to fill out an 8-game schedule. So I think there's some myths surrounding that. And I think just generally speaking, I think those are all trends moving forward in the state of Wisconsin of legitimizing 8-man football and the reasons people play it and the state tournaments and all those different things.
I think you hit it right there because my high school, where I graduated, is Flambeau High School, northwestern Wisconsin, middle of Rusk County. Not a whole lot of schools around there, right? And the Lakeland Conference is really one of the first ones to really organize and embrace 8-player football in northwestern Wisconsin. So you see a lot of the smaller schools, the Lux, the Flambeaus, the schools that are in that area, a lot of smaller schools in the Lakeland, all were among the first to go to 8-player. And it really became kind of a geographic trend, like you said. The same thing is happening right now in southwestern Wisconsin, where 3 years ago, there you had Belmont, you had Wausau Weston, you had basically Lafarge. You had 3 schools down here. Now there's 11 in southwestern Wisconsin. And there are 2 more coming in the next couple of years. So the trends are happening in the more rural parts of the state. But like you said, there's reasons to go to it beyond just, participation, things like that. Some schools do it, like you said, for budget reasons. To have to try to compete in a program where you got to travel 2 hours for your road games. And it's not just varsity. That's, if you have a JV, the JV's got to travel too. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So I agree with you. There are a lot of factors. It's actually one we're exploring at the district I'm in because we're having trouble finding non-conference games for 11-player teams because all the teams that we traditionally played down here in non-conference, well, they're all moving to 8-player. So there's definitely some things happening in this part of the state too.
What about the playoffs? We're right now in the midst of the playoffs. This year, we've seen, again, a lot of teams with losing records in conference make it to the postseason playoffs. In fact, we saw a team that went on the field 1-8 this year. Clintonville, they got a couple of forfeit wins, but, obviously they, got those as conference wins. They got to 3 conference victories, even though they only won once all season on the field. What's your take on where we stand in terms of the postseason, in terms of divisions? We still have 7 divisions in 11-player football, along with the 8-player division. What's your take? Should we consider cutting down on divisions, or do you think the current system still works?
Well, I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I'll try to make this brief in 2 parts. 8-player football needs to have more teams in the postseason somehow. I think we're going to be close to 70 teams participating in 8-player as of next year. I think 16 is too few for that playoff setup. There either needs to be 2 divisions of 16 or 1 division of 32 to really expand and grow that part of the game. I know the championship game, by the way, this Saturday between Florence and then Thorpe. I have a lot of familiarity with Thorpe. They were actually the last school I played against as a varsity high school football player. And they're coached by one of my good friends, Caldrick Stokes. So I'm excited to see what Thorpe can do in that state final game. But 8-player needs more teams in the postseason with how many teams that are in 8-player football. In 11-player, really what you've seen from the WIAA there's kind of a trend or a push to try to get more teams participating beyond week 9. There was a survey that went out a year or two ago asking if coaches would support having a culminating event for teams who don't make the postseason, kind of a 2-week, not really a playoff, but just kind of a 2-week 4-team bracket, regionally grouped, just to get those teams some extra games. And it didn't get a lot of support. In our case, we went 0-9 this past year, right? We didn't really want to play any more football. We had a lot of teams reach out about playing the +1 game. Not a lot of schools take advantage of that. We did it last year. It was a mistake. We got blown out. Kids didn't really want to be there. Same thing was this year in our week 9 game. So I don't know that adding football for schools that are struggling is going to be the answer for that. But it does seem to me that the push seems to be more trending towards an all-play kind of scenario, or at least as close to it as they can get. So I think them removing a division kind of is going away from that and having 224 in whatever form make the playoff field. If we bottom out at, say, 320 11-player teams, we're at 365 right now. I think that's kind of where they're going to be fine with. I don't see them removing divisions. I don't see them expanding divisions. I don't really see anything changing, except hopefully they expand 8 players somehow.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's tied to that a little bit, I don't know if you remember, Jimmie, or around, God, it's 10, 15 plus years ago now when they had the WI came out with that district proposal, and I kind of liked that too. I think the other thing in some of those proposals where it shortened the length of the regular season down to 8 games and kind of started that, but I think it also then ties into a little bit. I think the one thing that the Football Coaches Association is interested in is finding a way to bump that start week of football back a week into August, a little bit further back. And I think some of those different proposals and giving more teams opportunities on the back end of that, I think are all things that could possibly play into a possible solution moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I know that right now where things are at, things appear, even though that they're working through things, there's some challenges to it. I do think that there won't be a reduction in postseason. If anything, it'll be an expansion, but just by reading the room. But I don't think anything is really imminent on that front.
I would agree.
Do you think that's a good idea, though? I guess you may read the room, but at the same time, is that a good way to go? Is making football where everybody makes the playoffs? I think there's something that would be lost. I think there is something to trying to fight your way into the postseason when it's football, because football is different than a lot of the other sports. And obviously, I think it works fine in basketball and in hockey, where we've just everybody's got in. I guess I'll put it out there. I think something would be lost if all of a sudden everybody makes the playoffs. As somebody who's coaching right now, what do you think?
I would say this. I think that anytime you give kids an opportunity to compete for something, that brings with it motivation. You're giving kids opportunities at something. In our case, if basketball made a playoff in its 100-year history, it would be the first time ever. So for us, making a playoff would be a huge deal. And I think a lot of schools that are kind of in that range where they have some down years, they struggle, it takes 4 or 5 years to kind of build a program. And if you start having some of those opportunities where, hey, there's something to play for at the end of the year, I look at it from the perspective of what's good for the kids. I know some people will argue, hey, you're putting in a team that's won 2 games all year, and they're going to play a 9-0 squad and get demolished, right? I get that argument. I really do, because if we made it, regardless of what our record was, we were in probably the weakest conference in the entire state this year in 11-player, and we would have been seated very low. But that being said, it's opportunities for kids to play for something, and I really struggle with the idea of saying, we're not going to allow that because, we don't think, just by virtue a team doesn't win enough to make it. I think just in terms of opportunities for kids to compete, it makes some sense to me. It's not a slam dunk decision or anything like that for me, or a hot take or anything, but I just feel like having that opportunity for kids to play sports, another week of practice, another week of being together, I personally believe that's very beneficial.
Terrific. Well, Jimmie, again, good stuff. Thanks again for coming on and really delving into, I think, some very interesting issues in terms of high school football. But thanks again.
Chad, it's always great to be back home on the airwaves in northern Wisconsin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jimmie Kaska from Civic Media. We're going to come back with our student athlete guest coming up next, Caden Werth from Wausau East. That's straight ahead here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Take your career to the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
What's your idea of fall fun? Maybe it's hitting the trails on a new ATV. Then it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Or if you're thinking of a UTV for hauling wood or hunting, or maybe just because it would make the tasks around your property so much easier, it's time to call CCU. ATVs, UTVs, utility tractors, and their attachments for care of your property. Whether you need it for fun or to get the job done, Clover Belt Credit Union is here to help with the great rate financing you want. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Thinking about a motorhome or maybe a snowplow for your ATV or utility tractor? Call CCU for great rate financing. And if you're thinking motorcycle, Clover Belt Credit Union has the financing you need for the bike you want. Call or apply online at ccuwausau.com. Check it out. For vehicle loans, for mortgages, for financing fall fun, call Clover Belt Credit Union. That's CCU. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. And time for our student athlete guest for this week from Wausau East High School. Very happy to welcome to the program Caden Werth. And Caden, first of all, thanks for coming on over.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And love the multi-sport guys. And you are a guy that from the fall right through the spring, you're involved in athletics at Wausau East. For the folks out there, what varsity sports are you involved in?
I play basketball, football, and then baseball.
We will not ask you yet what your favorite sport is, but I guess to start off, let's talk about football, because it was a special year for Wausau East, because after 2 years of not playing 11-player varsity football, the Lumberjacks were back, and you were able to get off to a fantastic start to win that opener and win for the first time in quite a while, and play very competitive football during the course of the season. As you look back at the entire journey to get through, obviously, very difficult times where you didn't have the opportunity to play varsity football in the VFA the last couple of years, to what you and your teammates were able to accomplish this season, how would you describe it? I mean, it's something that very few student athletes have to go through. I mean, it's been quite a roller coaster the last few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's like no other. I mean, the kids, like this group of seniors especially, like they're the main part of this transition that Wausau's football has taken, going from 8-man to no team, well, JV, and then straight into the VFA. Very, very tough conference in the state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't heard about that, and I don't know. So, I mean, no, it was definitely a team, like a big team effort and a community goal that East did a fantastic job on fulfilling.
So, obviously, there's a huge football component, right? The X's and the O's and the strength and conditioning to get back to the point to be competing at that level. What were the things that people probably don't know about? Like, what did you and your teammates, your other senior teammates, and then the younger guys who had to fill in those other roles, what were the things that happened that got you ready for this season and got everybody on the same page and heading in the right direction? Like, what were the things off the field that mattered the most?
Yeah, for sure. Start of summer, just the lifting aspect, and then going right in the gym and doing that 7-on-7 competitive against each other. I mean, the competitive aspect of that is fun. Just seniors, juniors matched up against each other, friends on friends. But I don't know. I mean, little film sessions. Like, we were watching film in June on teams and watching last year's JV film, seeing what we can get better on. And yeah, I mean, Coach Kramer did a great job on getting this team prepared. And obviously with Coach Garrett coming in from basketball to being a football coach, I mean, that cannot be easy, coaching 2 varsity sports. I mean, he does a great job, though. And then this new staff with Coach Kramer's brother, Coach Nate, and then Coach Kong, Coach Wilson, Coach Marcourt. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Coach Shallow. I mean, Coach Schmidt. There you go. But no, it was awesome. I mean, yeah, just everybody on the same page all throughout the summer, and then coming into the school. It was great.
And you've kind of touched on it, but if you have anything else with that too, I mean, that was probably one of the other special pieces of this. It wasn't like an existing coaching staff who'd been there a long time, who went through this and rebuilt it. The coaching staff kind of went through it and enjoyed the emotional ups and downs and the heartache of the process of doing it, right? Because just about everybody is kind of just like the team was, being brand new to competing in this conference, like the coaches were too, right? So what role did that play in your success or coming together?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely new. Like, seeing Coach Nate looks just like Coach Kramer. So, I mean, that's funny. But I don't know. I mean, not everybody, most of them all played for East at one point. So a lot of just sports knowledge and know the game of football.
Have that pride and tradition of wanting that.
So they wanted it just as much as we did, probably even a little bit more. But I mean, it was just awesome. It was awesome knowing them from other sports, multiple sport coaches. That's so cool. And then being all on the same page it helped us a ton.
I had Coach Kramer on the program the first week before your first game. And, and to be honest with you, with East coming back, the first thought is, well, will the Jacks be able to get through the season? Because obviously it's been difficult. But he sat here and was so confident going into that first game. Did that confidence seep into the team, and was that a big factor in your team being able to go right out there and make a big statement in week 1?
No, yeah, we knew Lakeland was going to be a tough team, playoff team. But, I mean, I think we all thought we were going to win. We all had that mentality of, I mean, we don't see us losing. And, I forgot the number, but it was like 14-something is how many days, 1,400-something days until we've won a varsity game. So
right.
We had that written on the board. Some of us wrote it on ourselves. We were so hyped for that game. I think all that energy just took us into that game so ready to go and came out with the W. It was awesome.
What was the bus trip back home like? Because obviously, as you said, a long time coming, a lot of work, a lot of heartbreak. I mean, when you don't get a chance to compete every Friday night last season, not to be able to compete in a log game, and then to come back and in that night to be able to go up there and then come home on that bus with you and your teammates and your coaches victorious in impressive fashion. What was that bus trip like?
No, it was sweet. I mean, knowing we just beat all expectations on getting a win this year, I mean, it was awesome. We had kids up in the front freestyling, like rapping and stuff. We had kids sleeping, but it was just an all around like fun bus ride, enjoyable. We were all with each other. Coaches were getting hype with us. I mean, it was cool.
So and we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff here, but kind of maybe tying a bow a little bit on the football season is I'm a huge proponent of when you look back over your shoulder after that last game of the season, and in football, if you make the playoffs, it's a loss. Otherwise, it's win, whatever. So I'm a really big believer in your ability to look back over your shoulder and see where you were when you started as a boy, right, a freshman boy football player, and where you are as a 17 or 18-year-old senior. And Wausau East can probably speak to it a lot more than just about anybody else or anybody else who's been in that situation of the ups and downs and change. What did you learn as a human being? What did you learn as a young man that you will take away from this 4-year experience, this 4-year ride that you think will have the most impact in who you are as a man moving forward, as whatever it ends up being next, a college student, a boss, a husband, a father? What will you take with you from this experience that was the most meaningful?
I mean, teamwork and working through adversity. I mean, I wrote my college essay on our whole 4-year journey, but I mean, just really seeing how our senior group was able to get through that adversity, get through everything everybody was saying, and just keep going. I mean, we were so easy to just quit. Like, we had kids quit, but we were lucky to also get some kids to join and come on the ride with us and be a part of it. But no, what we did was something special. We all took away with like the ability of coming out as a family and like the brotherhood aspect of Wausau East. It's awesome. Like, yeah, it's sweet.
And at the end of the day, I don't know if East would be a D2 or D3 football playoff team at 900. Is that D2
Probably
still?
2, I would think.
So as a D2, I can guarantee you right now there is not 10 people in the city of Wausau who could tell you who the 4 teams left in Division II are in the state of Wisconsin to play for a state championship, let alone a year from now who won last year's state Division II championship. So at the end of the day, the wins mean something in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's about the experience, and what you guys accomplished in experience, I think, is something that you'll be able to take with you forever. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
One other point about football before we turn our attention to the hardwood. I thought it was a special log game this year, being the last one, and you had the opportunity to make a big play and to be able to return a kick for a touchdown, and I was up in the booth. And to see you going down the field and all those students, your friends, your classmates, they're all in white, I think, that night, if I'm not mistaken, to see them be able to cheer and to have that release in terms of, for East to be back in the log game and for you to make that big play. I imagine that was one of the highlights for this season.
No, I mean, that was awesome. Seeing the part for me was the student section was crazy, but then the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders on the little bleachers behind the touchdown, I remember them chanting my name even when we were down by 30 or something. I gave them a point, and I was like, yeah, we did it. Here we are. We're back in this. It was just an awesome experience.
Fantastic. Well, not much rest for the weary. Get to get ready now as basketball practice will start next week and then get set for the upcoming season. And it looks like from everything I've read that there's some really exciting times for Wausau East boys basketball this year. I guess going into the season, how do you look at your team? What do you see with you and your teammates and your coaches? Because there's a lot of folks who think that Wausau East can make some noise this season.
I mean, yeah, especially our junior group, Jesse and Bagetzik, just a stud basketball player, stud athlete. Jaden Garrett, great core vision, great IQ in the game. And then Charlie Cayley, just a tank. He's always in the weight room, hard to get out. And then our senior group, me, Isaac Rozwadowski, Jack Bartles, and then Brady Brahota, just all athletes, all really good. And then 6'6" junior or sophomore Robbie and Julie, he'll be something to watch out for. I mean, our expectations are high, and we're ready to face them. I mean, we got big hopes this year, and we're always in the gym 3 weeks before the season's even started. Like, we're ready to go.
As a senior, when you talk about you, a really good junior class, talented sophomore out there. But at the same time, you've been through a lot.
Yep.
How do you go about, do you look at yourself as a leader? Do you expect yourself to be a leader, both in terms of what you do between the lines, but also probably just as importantly in the locker room, in the hallways, on the bench? How do you look at your role as a senior for East?
No, for sure. As being a freshman, being able to have the chance to play varsity basketball, I mean, I was so scared of those bigger guys, but I knew some of them from other sports, so that helped me adjust. But Coach Assert and Coach Garrett have really been pushing me to be more of a leader, whether I'm on the bench or on the court. And yeah, I know I need to take that role, and I just need everybody to start believing, like students at school in the hallways, and then especially the team. But we don't really have a problem with that, and just keeping everybody high when they're down, and then just encouraging them to keep doing their thing.
What is the biggest difference for you, having played both sports for 4 years in different levels and different versions? What is the difference between getting through a long winter 24-game basketball season plus playoffs versus a 9-week? Obviously, football has more weeks leading up to the games, but 1 game a week. It's a pretty standard routine, right? This is what you do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Friday you play. You start it all over again. It's the exact same. What are the big differences between competing in a football season and competing in a high school basketball season?
No, yeah, definitely the games. Like, we'll have a game Monday and then Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even a Saturday. But Coach Garrett does an excellent job of getting us prepared. Excellent practices. He really strives for like the good practices leading up for a game. He's not very happy when we don't have those good practices, but he's ecstatic when we do have those before games. But no, it's definitely a lot longer and something to adjust to. But like I said, we're all so ready for it, especially my senior class. It's our senior year. We're just ready to go get something.
Again, we're talking to Caden Werth, senior from Wausau East High School, here on the big high school sports show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. We'll get back to the sports in a few minutes, but you're obviously very busy with a lot of sports. But what do you like to do when you try to get away from it? Maybe, obviously, I think something I've learned during the show is the kids love being part of the sport, so it's almost like you don't want to get away from it. But at the same time, what else do you enjoy maybe outside of the sports realm?
Yeah, just hanging out with my buddies, like, and a lot of them are my sports teammates. Like in the summer, especially me and Jack Barthels, we golf every day, if not twice. Like it's just a great time for me to be around those guys and especially build that bigger relationship with them for the upcoming sports season. So I mean, yeah, just hanging out with them, it's always fun.
Mm-hmm. What about favorite class when you're over at East? Do you have a favorite class?
Yeah, shout out Ms. Zastrow. I like accounting. I love her accounting class.
Guy in sports has to know numbers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
As a senior, do you hope to go to college? Do you have any plans for after high school at this point?
Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going to go to college yet, but I'm looking to play football somewhere in college, so doing all that recruiting and stuff, it's been quite a journey. Let's
talk about that a little bit, because it's always interesting because, how much do you reach out to folks maybe for information? How many times do you hear from coaches at different universities? Maybe a little peek behind the curtain in terms of somebody that has opportunities to continue their athletic career at the next level. What's that experience been like, and maybe something you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, so, it's definitely getting the whole format down on what you're going to send to a coach. I mean, it is kind of that copy and paste game and changing the coach's last name.
Make sure you change it.
Yeah, I forgot that a few times.
Yeah.
But no, Coach Kramer's a great mentor at that. He knows his stuff. He's been to the coaching clinics, the recruiting clinics, and it really went both ways for me. I've reached out to some coaches. I went to some camps. Like, I went to the River Falls mega camp, and then maybe 2 days later got the offer from River Falls. But it's just sometimes they'll reach out to me, but yeah, it's kind of 50-50 on that, but it's quite a journey.
One of the cool, you talk about River Falls. My daughter's a senior at River Falls, so I follow them a little bit in football, and we have some players playing over there at West Grads. One of the cool things about like playing in the WIAC is not only other kids from East as we move forward and kids from West and Everest, but throughout the entire conference. So you come together and you do the perimeter camp in the summer and you get to know some of these guys through football and other sports. But I was talking to Chad off the air, and River Falls and lacrosse played basically for the conference championship this last weekend, and the game went down to a field goal at the end. River Falls was kicking a field goal to tie it up, to send it to overtime. Actually, not a very long field goal, and it was a guy named Jack Kelly, who was a standout for Spash 4 or 5 years ago, who blocked the field goal and basically secured the conference championship for lacrosse. So I think you can't go wrong if you choose a WIAC school for football, or any of the D3 schools in the state of Wisconsin would be good choices.
Yep.
You get a chance, as you said, to play 3 different sports. So obviously, it's different feels, I think, probably during each season. But if you had maybe a favorite opponent, the games, whether it's on the hardwood here in the winter, or on the baseball diamond in the spring, or on the football field here this past fall, is there a favorite rival where you just know, you look at that schedule, you circle it when you see the schedule come out? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, I think the answer that you guys are expecting is West, but
no expectations here.
I mean, for me personally, it's Bash. I know they always got good programs, and we want to beat them so bad and stuff we do. But I mean, no, they got good coaches over there, great programs, great athletes. But I mean, we always work our hardest, some of our hardest, knowing that Spash game is coming.
In addition to that, what are your relationships with the other athletes in your 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball? What, through camps, and whether it's local camps or mega camps or things you do for baseball? I know, what do you play in the summer? Legion?
Yeah,
right,
Legion.
And that's a makeup of kids from different schools in our area. So what are your relationships like? Obviously, you compete like crazy and you want to beat everybody you play every game, but are those relationships usually more after the game friendly, or is it, I want to kick your butt on the court and I don't got much time for you afterwards either? How do those types of things work?
Well, before, it's definitely, we know we're playing each other, and it's I want to kick your butt on the court or wherever we're playing. But after the game, it's all love. Especially those West kids that I play baseball with, football with. Jackson Albee comes to mind. But yeah, I mean, we're all friends after the game. I mean, we all go out there, compete, give our 100, but I always went to the back of the football handshake line because I always knew I'd be doing some extra stuff with some guys and don't want to hold the line up. But no, it's awesome.
And I guess finally, something we always ask our student athlete guests at the end is, especially the seniors, as we kind of touched on it, I think, during the discussion, but based on everything you've learned, and if you have a kid at East who's a freshman or a sophomore that's just starting in one of the sports, starting their journey, within athletics at Wausau East, what piece of advice would you give, maybe, that you've learned over these last few years to that person that's just starting their journey?
Yeah, no, I'd say just stick with it. You're going to go through some hard stuff. Obviously, what we've went through probably won't happen to many other people, but no, just stick with it. Stay in the gym, stay doing your drills. I mean, it's going to be a long run, 4 years, and it's hearing those kids say it, from my freshman year, hearing those kids say it goes quick. I don't really believe them because 4 years is 4 years, but it goes quick. After that last football game, it was tough. It was tough for the coaches, the players, especially what East has been through. But no, I just stick with it. Keep doing it. Keep working hard. Keep your teammates up. Build that brotherhood, and you should be good.
Very good. Anything else, Coach?
Just congratulations on a good season, and best of luck this winter and this spring. Look forward to watching how you guys do.
Thank you.
Try to rest a little bit. Caden Werth, Wausau East High School senior, joining us, our student athlete guest this week here on Bull Falls Radio. We'll come right back, look ahead at some of the remaining area football teams in action this week, and also we're going to take a look back at some of the conferences and who really impressed this season before we wrap up tonight's show. Coming up, more to come. I should say more to come here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Fall sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rim Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rim Mountain today.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
State champions are crowned over the weekend in boys soccer plus boys and girls volleyball. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
High school football playoffs are here, and the NFHS Network is the place to keep up with every moment of the action. You can catch all the games live or on demand wherever you are. At home or on the go, you can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Watching high school sports has never been easier. Subscribe to the NFHS Network now to watch every play this postseason. Visit NFHSNetwork.com. That's NFHSNetwork.com.
Uline Soccer Park in Milwaukee was the site of the boys soccer state championship on Saturday. To open the festivities, Shoreland Lutheran took down St. Mary Catholic to claim the Division IV title. Fourth-seeded Belleville New Glarus, who goes by the Sugar River Co-op, surprised with the title in Division III, taking down Plymouth 4-1 in the final. Union Grove grabbed the title in Division II. Middleton survived a shootout against Marquette in the semifinals, then won via shootout once again in the championship match against Brookfield East. Within just a few minutes of the Middleton boys soccer team winning the title, the Cardinals boys volleyball squad also claimed a state championship at the Rush Center in Green Bay, taking down Arrowhead in 5 sets. It's the first title for Middleton in 14 state tournament appearances. In the girls volleyball state tournament, top-seeded Waniwak Center rallied from a 2-set deficit to take down Newman Catholic in a thrilling Division IV title match. After a runner-up finish last year, St. Croix Falls won the title in Division III against 3-time defending champion Howards Grove. Xavier was a repeat state champion in Division II with a straight-set victory against McFarland. There was a repeat winner in D1 as well, where DSHA beat Oconomowoc in the championship match for a second straight year. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net and search Apple for the WSN podcast.
And welcome back. Big high school sports show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. So, again, another great student-athlete guest. I think you were perfect, 12 for 12 this year.
No, he did a great job, and I think he's got a great story to tell, and I think all of those kids do. I think at the end of the day, you want to win, you want to make the playoffs, you want to have those memories, and maybe that makes some of those memories sweeter. I'm not going to argue that, but at the end of the day, it's really about the process that you go through Monday through Saturday morning through Thursday with your friends and your teammates about watching film and licking your wounds, whether it's a loss or rehabbing those bumps and bruises, and then the jokes you tell and the stories of things that happened on the bus, like you said, in the locker room, and that group of guys really came together, and they're going to have some great stories to tell at their reunions.
And the thing about it as well is another multi-sport athlete. I mean, that's why you hurt for those guys who missed some opportunities in football, because these guys, they work so hard. They deserve every opportunity. And that was what made as he said, the law game, it was not a close game on the scoreboard, but there was still such a wonderful energy. And when he did return that kick for a touchdown, to see all those East students on their feet and to hear the youngsters also do it. I mean, again, it's not always about, when you look at the scoreboard at the end, it's those moments and those opportunities. And again, I felt so good for everybody, especially to hear the story about winning that game to start the season off, to win a varsity football game after everything they went through. It's really good stuff.
And I think when we've watched this ebb and flow over the last, 7-8 years with the East football program since Coach Young was there in their last playoff appearance. And I think the one thing that really stuck out to me this year about them, and probably was my biggest question mark for them coming into the season is, and we use the word a lot in the conversation tonight, is were they going to come out and compete? Or when the going got tough, was that loser's limp going to come out and guys laid on the field and we're going to see more of the trainer than we are the head coach? And it didn't happen. And they, from day one with that victory, they competed and they got better, and the teams that should have blew them out, but it did not deter them from accomplishing what they set out to accomplish, and they have a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely. Well, we got a few games to talk about this week. For the final time to preview some action. And Division 7, you got Edgar and Bangor. Edgar 11-1, Bangor 11-1. Bangor's only loss came to Cashton, but they were able to avenge that loss last week, winning 17-12, scoring late. Bangor has 2 running backs that have run for more than 1,000 yards. Chase Horseman, 1,072 yards. Samuel Kropp, 1,103 yards. And the thing about it is, Horseman's averaging 5.4. Kropp 6.1. Again, it's not what you sometimes these numbers you see for these really good teams of 9 and 10 yards per carry. No, this is a team that's methodical, but they played some close games during the season. Boy, this is Edgar's just playing so well. I mean, that's the thing about it. We talked about this I think last week about teams that are peaking at the right time, and you look at what Edgar and Stratford have been doing. They're just playing their best football right now, aren't they?
Yeah, and I know that Coach Takis isn't around anymore. Legendary Coach Takis at Stratford and Coach Sins at Edgar. But I feel a little bit when we talked to Coach Tubbs last week, and he kind of felt like he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder about having to go to Auburndale and the whole seating thing. I feel like maybe that's where Edgar's at this year. I feel like Coach Sins feels like they have, and the Wildcat as a team, they have something to prove, right? I think Stratford's maybe been getting a little more love than the Wildcats with their most recent state championship, and I feel like it just feels a little different. Edgar is the one team that I followed pretty closely even when I was coaching, and they've probably had what they would consider disappointing finishes to their season leading right up to that last state championship game that they were in, and probably were heavily favored in that game and had all the turnovers and penalties and ended up losing that game. So I feel like this is maybe a team on a mission and going to be a tough one for Bangor. For Bangor. So I think that we will see. It's hard to predict what is
especially
Bangor's
exactly.
I hear 2,000-yard rushers and I hear those averages, and the first thing that pops into my mind is Abbotsford had that too this year, and they were, you know what I mean.
And it could mean they got good size up front that were able to move enough off the line of scrimmage and let these guys do their thing. So again, that game is being played at Durand, Arkansas. And if you ask me right now where Durand, Arkansas is, I could not tell you. So I don't know how long of a trip that is for anybody.
I can tell you. Well, I can't tell you exactly where it is. I can tell you that I've driven by it several times on my way to go fishing on the Mississippi River on Lake Pepin, and they have a very nice turf field, right?
Really?
And it's actually
it has to be turf this week.
It's right on the road. Like you can, as you drive by, you could spit out your window and it'll land on the 50-yard line. It's that close to the road. So
Division 6, Stratford 11-1, Grantsburg undefeated. Game will be played at DeRay Field at Chippewa Falls. Of course, we talked a lot about Stratford, but looking at Grantsburg, it's a team that actually throws the ball a little bit. Their quarterback, Brock Matheny, has thrown 148 passes this season, completed 93, 1,380 yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So obviously, it's a team that is somewhat balanced. They have 2 running backs that have put up big numbers. Trenton Johnson has run for 989 yards, averaging a gaudy 9.7 yards per rush. And Gavin Rosso is rushed for 835 yards, averaging 7 yards per rush. And also, Trenton Johnson, who I mentioned, is also their number 1 receiver at 509 yards on 32 receptions. So, again, I think we've talked about this. But when you look at a team, if they are one-dimensional, it's a lot easier to beat them. If they are able to have 2 dimensions, I think that's one reason a team is 12-0, getting an opportunity. And, of course, we talked about Stratford also being a team that is not one-dimensional. So it has the seeds of a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, and I think Grantsburg also has some tradition as well. I think they've had some success in their program. I think that most certainly helps in these situations, having been there before. Stratford, obviously, there's very few teams in the state who have as much pedigree and tradition as they have, but it's gonna with those run games, it's very cliche. This one's going to come down to defense, I think, and
Right.
who's able to stop the other one's runner. And Grantsburg has 2 guys for 900, and Stratford has Kohler Kilty.
And he's proven himself
Who
at
rushed
the- yeah.
We talk about running for 800 and 900 yards or 1,000 yards in the season. He ran for 350 last week, or Carter did, and then he ran for almost 300
Yeah.
himself last week, or plus 300. So I think it really comes down to game planning and defensive strategies. I don't think there's a lot of secrets in programs like this in level 4. It just comes down to who executes better, who has probably the better day passing, as they both do it not a ton, but both do it enough, and it's part of their winning game.
But
plan.
all that said, I almost have to wait to see, can anybody challenge Stratford the way they've been playing. I mean, we saw it, we've seen it before, where, facing a team with an outstanding record, but then they come out and do what they do. And again, I guess I would have to see somebody actually, give a little uppercut and get the knees a little wobbly, because you got to put a team like Stratford a little bit, feeling a little uncomfortable, because if they're comfortable, they're going to be able to basically do what they want.
Yeah, and we talked about it in back-to-back weeks, having Coach Sins on one week and then having Coach Tubbs on last week. The impact of the game they played against each other that had on both of their programs this year.
Right.
Like Edgar lost the week before, and they came out and had probably the game of their life against Stratford the following week based on some turnovers. And Coach Tubbs very much alluded to the fact that loss to Edgar really kind of set them in motion to, hey, we got some things we want. Like this defending our state championship isn't just going to happen. We got some work to do here. And since that time, it really hasn't been close in anybody they've played. So I agree with you. I think that Grantsford's really going to have to come out and prove something in order to win this game, and I'm not sure they can do it.
And finally, the 8-player state championship game Saturday afternoon in Wisconsin Rapids. Florence undefeated takes on 9-2 Thorpe. I think this is going to be an interesting game. And again, the way Newman has rolled through the competition the last couple of years, it's been a lot more competitive in 8-player. That just shows, again, how good the cards were the last couple of years. But Florence, again, I was so impressed with Will Kelly. I mean, he was just a stud on both sides of the football for Florence. And Thorpe, they got a couple of really good runners. They were able to throw the ball a little bit as well. But I'm kind of curious to see this football game, because I think it's not one where you can say, well, one is going to certainly beat the other. But I think Florence comes in as a bit of a favorite. But the way Thorpe has beat Gilman and then McDonald the last 2 weeks, both undefeated teams, it's obviously a team on a run. But I think folks should keep an eye on this 8-players championship game on Saturday.
How long have both of these teams played 8-player football?
I think Thorpe only a couple of years.
Right.
And I don't even think they were eligible last season, because I think that was the year they kind of moved, and you had to move within the certain parameters or something along those lines. I think Florence has been around a little bit longer than that.
I think that plays a role in it too.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I definitely learned from you early on over the years is how important it is to be able to coach the game, right? That it isn't
Take
just,
advantage of the rules.
It isn't just playing 11-man football with 8 guys.
Right.
It's a different style of football. It's 100% football, but it's a different, and it's coached differently, and game planning is done differently. So obviously I think coaching will play a big role. Florence, I know from my time up in Eagle River, has a tradition of being a solid 11-man football team. So they have some tradition. They know how to win. And based on you having watched them a couple times this year, and I think when you talked about how good of an athlete Kelly is, I think that's one of the things that sticks out about Newman's title runs. It's a team game. We all know that. It's easier to win when you have really good players on those teams. And I think truly dominant players in 8-player football maybe do have the potential to have a bigger impact on a single game than maybe in, like, I had Austin Ramish, who I would to this day say is one of the best running backs in state history. And he was able to be stopped. You know what I mean? In a level, I can't remember if it was level 2 or 3 football game, he was able to be stopped by another good football team. I think that's harder to do in 8-player football, just because the number of players you have on your team and the depth and the number of athletes you have definitely plays a role. So maybe he is the key and the difference maker for Florence.
Be interesting. Coming up, we're going to take a step back and kind of look at our area conferences, maybe some final thoughts on teams that may have been most impressive, players maybe that really stepped up as well. We'll talk about that coming up next. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. More to come on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
Fall sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rim Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rim Mountain today. If you're looking for your next ride, check out Mankey GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Mankey GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Mankey GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at MankeyAuto.com. Mankey GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer, and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXEO with Jason Foster. I'm Chad Holmes. Again, final week with Coach Foster, so let's look kind of back at what we have seen over the last, 12, 13 weeks, starting with the Valley Football Association. And I'm going to bring up something you said very early. You didn't see it with Stevens Point right away. Yeah. It's okay to say that because they had a rough year a year ago, and even early, it's like, I'm not so sure about Stevens Point. And yet they did it. I mean, what credit? I mean, and especially for that coaching staff that had such a rough go of it last season, for them to turn it around like they did and win outright the conference championship by 2 games. I guess that's my number one story in the VFA.
I think I think my hesitation to giving them the credit that they most certainly deserved was
again, that was very early.
No. I have no problem owning it 100% because I think my question mark came in the form of had they hired the right guy as head coach, and who the heck am I to say who the right guy is? But I felt my question mark was he came from a very small program, and myself coming back here from a smaller program up there where you had 4 or 5 coaches on your staff to now being on a staff that has 14 paid coaches and probably another half dozen volunteer coaches. It's a completely different animal as far as managing that coaching staff and making sure all the and he said something really interesting to me very early on in our conversation with him early in the season.
Ryan Eigenberger,
yes.
His name here.
Yep. He said something very interesting, and it was that's what he had to change. He had to learn how to not manage. He had to learn how to delegate. He had to learn how to turn offensive things over to offensive guys and defensive things over to defense and the little things, transportation. Like you can't do it all at a school the size of Spash. There's just too many things and too many parents to keep happy with 2,000 in the school. So I would agree with you that what a great year they had. What a turnaround. What a should be coach of the year, should be most improved of the year. So yeah, that I agree with you. That would be my highlight of the year.
And tie for second between West and Everest. Thoughts on both those squads? Because obviously I think for West it was so close against Stevens Point in the playoffs and losing a couple of massively impact players due to injury, and that happens. So that was disappointing because it felt like the Warriors had a lot going for them, except they lose the 29th and 30th ranked seniors in the state of Wisconsin. And for Everest I thought it was a pretty good bounce back season. I thought Logan George did a nice job taking over at quarterback for DC Everest. But your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with West. I think they've kind of established themselves as somebody who should be in that conversation year in and year out, and obviously those injuries played a key role. Everybody has injuries, you know what I mean? So you can't use it as an excuse, and I don't think anybody there is using it as an excuse either. But in addition to losing those guys this season, they lost, or for the season to injuries this year, they're also seniors. So they have to look at how they're going to replace them next year. And I think Everest too. I think they took another nice step in the right direction, and they will come in next season as probably, I would say, as a team that's kind of back to being consistently ranked in that top 3. I think the question marks then become is Rapids ready to bounce back? Is Marshfield ready to kind of get back into that conversation? And then obviously next year, what does Eau Claire North, Eau Claire Memorial, and crossover games with those other big river schools? What does this new conference look like, and how does it shake out?
And it's going to be tough to beat Spash because they do have a lot back as well. I mean, they took the step, and they still got some good talent coming back as well.
I would most certainly say that even with those 2 Eau Claire schools, and I would say that your favorite thing, preseason rankings, but I would say those preseason rankings most certainly will include Spash at the top.
Yeah. Great Northern. Mosinee, again, a lot of good stuff for Mosinee this season, but those 2 losses kind of hang out there. Number 1, the Stratford game where Stratford kind of took it to them in Mosinee, and then that playoff game. I mean, that one's just got to stick in the pit of the stomach because, they had the game. They made a nice comeback. Came up short, but still, I mean, what Mosinee did in terms of both offense and defense was very impressive this year.
Yeah, they're super talented on both sides of the ball. I think they have kids who play really well on both sides of the ball. I mean, obviously there's superstars there, and the first one who comes to mind is Keegan Jerschley, all region on both sides of the ball. My bet is he's going to be an all-state football player on both sides of the ball. And again, they're losing a really nice group of athletes for a second year in a row at Mosinee. And I would say you could tell this year that they lost a very nice crop of athletes last year. So how does that factor in to the GNC next year? And I go back a little bit on what I said earlier to Caden, how nobody remembers the wins and the losses and stuff like that. I do think they're going to remember that one for a while.
And I guess generally the GNC, we're still waiting for some of these schools that have actually some decent football tradition to reestablish themselves. I think a team like Anago that has great tradition, they took a step forward, but they still have a ways to go. You got to see some of these schools move a little bit. I mean, Lakeland has been good, but they haven't been able to take that next step. They've been able to beat the teams they're supposed to beat and not really beat the other teams. Again, for that league, and I think for the top teams like Mosinee and Medford, they would be better served if they have a little more competition within the conference.
And I'm a little bit intrigued with, I mean, losing Ashland isn't going to hurt the compete level in that conference. And I am intrigued with what will Wausau East be able to do? Did this group of seniors, I mean, East is losing some really talented players this year in Caden, Werth, and Pacey Weber, and a host of others. But is there enough left there when they get in there next year as the biggest school in that conference to maybe change the compete level in that conference a little bit? And I think we're going to find that Tomahawk, as one of the smaller schools, the smallest school now in that conference, I believe, they have a new coach this year, and with some strong ties to that community and history of a time when they were a better football program. Are they maybe ready to push aside some of those mid-level teams and maybe kind of make a statement next year too? Probably not going to come out and win it, but will they improve the compete level week in and week out?
Merriwood. Again, very strong. I mean, 5 of the 6 schools did ultimately make the playoffs due to the crossovers with the CWC Small. Edgar, we've talked a lot about Edgar. Of course, they won the conference championship. Auburndale, a great season. Again, it's a really nice story where a program that was skirting 8-player football a couple of years ago has now had 2 really good seasons. Colby, they looked like a team to really be reckoned with until late in the season for whatever reason. Who knows what happened there. And then Abbotsford, a nice bounce back because last season they faded late and they did not make the playoffs. And Marathon made it back to the postseason for the first time, I think, in about 6 years. And they had a great opportunity to kind of get that signature win for the season. I mean, obviously it's got to sting a little bit to be up 18 and see Auburndale scored late in the fourth quarter to pull out the win. And even Pittsville, I mean, they started off, they had some nice wins. I think every one of those teams has something they can hang their hat on from 2023.
Yeah, I feel like throughout my coaching career, with the exception of Edgar, I feel like at one point or another, I've kind of been where each of those teams are from an ending the season standpoint. As you went through them, I was just kind of thinking in my mind, okay, their end of the season meetings are sounding like this. This is what they have to do to get over this hump next year, and kind of going down the line. And I think a team like Abbotsford, at the end of last season, they said we faded at the end, didn't make the playoffs. This year, what were they, a 2 or a 3 seed?
They were 2.
They were a 2 seed and didn't go the way they wanted to, obviously, but they made the playoffs. They were a 2 seed. They got a home game. Like, those are all probably things that they had written on their goal board for going into this season. And then you have the Auburndales and the Colbys of the world who have that tradition, who've been there before, and they are sitting around saying, what do we need to do to get back to championship level? What do we need to do? I mean, Auburndale got the 1 seed, so we saw how that worked. But I think all of those things kind of are into play, and those teams all have things that I think each one, Marathon, Pittsville, I think they all took steps in the right direction, and they all have reasons to be excited heading into next season.
CWC's large. Stratford won the conference. They ran through that very difficult league undefeated. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood had just the loss, and they played very competitively against Stratford. Amherst had some bumps early in their non-conference, bumps early within the league, but able to secure 3rd place in that conference. Wyomega-Fremont, real interesting year because they won their first 6 games. They were sitting pretty, and then they ran into the gauntlet of Stratford, Whitburn, and Amherst and gave up a lot of points before then falling to Stratford in the first round of the playoffs. And then the rest of the league, I think, all struggling a bit. But again, it's a very, very solid top 3. I think we've seen that. And the thing about Whitburn is they've really established themselves now as a consistent power because they had some down years, but now in the last handful of years, they've become a consistent power. Amherst has been there every year, and Stratford, of course, looks like they're almost back at that level when they were winning like 5, 6, or whatever they won in a row in the past.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because right now, part of what makes Wittenberg-Burnhamwood kind of be a consistent contender in there is they have the names, right? They have these names, and you're like, oh, he graduated. Here's his younger brother, and they're kind of probably drawing on some of that tradition. They have a state championship in their trophy cabinet, and then I look at Amherst, and I think almost the opposite. I think, who were the big names on Amherst this year, and they're not popping out to me. So is that what's next? You know what I mean? Are the big names coming back? Because you know that they're still in that community. That's how it works, right? At Colby or at Stratford and Edgar, and Amherst is that same pedigree. Is this just a year after? And I think last year was their year, right? We won't tear that scab off and start talking about that again.
Right.
But I think last year was their year. So maybe this year was a little bit, for lack of a better term, in Amherst terms, a little bit of a rebuild. And are they ready to just roll again next year?
And finally, the CWC Small. Now, I felt for this group the entire year because of having to play those crossovers where every one of those teams started in a 0-2 hole. Yeah. And Iola played really well to win the conference. Loyal, boy, they came rallying late. They didn't win a game until sometime, I think, close to October. But then they played very well coming down the stretch. Assumption was a program that took a step back this year. And I think that's not to be thought of in a negative, because when you're a small school, there's going to be times where it's just, kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. Yeah. And then Pacelli battled as they do every year, but I think Iola again reestablished themselves where they were for a number of years, because they first came from the large to the small, and it looks like they're back to where they are. And again, they will be very happy that with the realignment next year that they will not have these crossover games anymore.
Yeah. When you talk about the small, obviously their league is based on their enrollment. They're the smaller schools in that group. And you talk about Assumptions and Pacelli's and the other schools in there, 1 or 2 or 3 players makes a big difference as far as from one year to the next, because on a team like that, 1, 2, 3, 4 players is 2, 4, 6, 8 players, because they probably all go both ways, and the probably a really small margin of error, and then every injury is that much more magnified. And hopefully they'll get some relief with the conference realignment next year.
We got 45 seconds to go. Number one, thank you again for coming in every Wednesday night for these couple of hours. Any final thoughts as we wrap up this portion of our schedule?
I think my biggest thought is, first off, thank you. It's been great to be part of it. I've loved talking with you and having these conversations. It kind of keeps me in contact with football. And I think number 2, thank you for doing this in general and continuing it through the winter and all you do for sports and athletics and really academics in our community. I think this is huge. I think it's lost on a lot of levels, the importance of radio and the exposure you give to our student athletes in this area. It's awesome, and it's very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thanks to Jason Foster. But we will start our winter schedule next week. So we'll be back next week, 6 till 8 here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.